Chapter 6 Assignment Rocklyn Endelgian, Phoenix Diner. This must be some kind of bad joke, Vada says, angrily. He tries to pull Fordron aside to speak in private, but the master is insistent on speaking where Danny can hear him. She's the only person here that knows the city better than me. She also has experienced death. Do you not know the advantage that gives us? Danny speaks up, not wanting to be left out of the decisions involving herself. What does my near-death experience have to do with some astral monster? She emphasizes the word near, still fearful of having anyone know she truly died before being resurrected by some force still unknown to her. She questions why Master Fordron seems to think she did in fact die, despite what she has told everyone. A revenant is the leftovers of a spirit that refused to pass on or was trapped between the worlds. Over time, it distorts into a monstrous creature that seeks out life energy to feed upon. Because it's technically not alive, the creature is invisible to anyone who has not been touched by death itself. There are spells we can perform to grant us the sight, but it is a poor replacement for a true spiritual ability, Fordron explains. Not only will you be able to experience the undead through your primary 5 senses, you will also have an innate ability to know when one of these creatures is nearby before anyone else. She is not your ghost search dog. You will be risking her life unnecessarily. She has no experience with the undead. The mere presence of one near her could drain her life if she is not careful, Vatas shouts. Lives are at stake. Stop trying to protect your new girlfriend and let her prove her usefulness. Enough, Danny yells, silencing them both. Stop talking as if I weren't here and had no mind of my own. I'm a big girl. I can make my own decisions. You've never faced a revenant before. It takes several masters or knights to kill one, Vatas says, worry in his voice. Danny's touched by his concern and the possibility that he does have some kind of feelings for her. But she is not his child, and he cannot tell her what she may or may not do. 2 masters were sent to apprehend Sensei Schaefer and failed. Yamura killed him easily, and I faced him. Do you mean to tell me that a revenant is going to be more fearsome than Yamura? Vatas pauses, unsure of how to respond. They are incomparable threats. A revenant can drain away your life just by being near you. I have to go, Danny says. If my going can help one person not get devoured by this creature, then I don't have a choice. Fordron smiles, having expected this kind of reaction from the girl. She strikes him as having a deep sense of responsibility and an even greater amount of penance she feels she must work off for unleashing Yamura on the world. Sighing, Vatas realizes, finally, that nothing he can say or do will dissuade Danny. Just be careful. Don't allow yourself to become separated from the team. And if you feel fatigued, leave at once before the creature can continue feeding on you. Come. We must prepare and leave immediately, Fordron says, giving Vatas one last grin before leaving the diner. I'll be careful, I promise, Danny says, touching Vatas' shoulder. I'm not that easy to kill. I wish that were actually true, she thinks. Rocklyn High School, 1:45 p.m. Preparing for classes to dismiss and move on to the final period of the day, the students grow restless and stop paying attention to their still lecturing teachers. Seated in the back of Miss Branch's English class, Amy Cross finishes writing a quick note before passing it on to Sarah Grant, who hands it to Rusty Rigsby. The two of them have experienced a lot together in the less than 1 year they've been dating. Rusty's older cousin Jake's steadily decline into madness and despair took its toll on their relationship, but they persevered. When Jake became bonded to the spirit of the Sakari Yamura, things certainly took a turn for the worst. Yamura made multiple attempts to kill Rusty and his brothers, before finally taking Amy hostage as bait against the young Rigsby. Even now, Amy can still feel the discomfort and stiffness in her neck and the residual feelings of having it snapped. I should not be here, she thinks. Yamura killed me, and I died. I'm sure of it. She remembers the Sakari's rage boiling over and him easily overpowering her. Her death was the boost needed to give Rusty the strength to fight back against Yamura and finally defeat him. Her sacrifice meant the end of Yamura's horror. Except, it didn't end there. Instead of staying dead, and her spirit passing on to heaven to be with Jim Henson, the saints, and baby Jesus, she was pulled back into her body by the combined efforts of Rusty's love and Danny Livingston's healing magic. Magic. The one thing she would never have expected to be a factor in her life, let alone define it. She watches, waiting for Rusty to open and read her letter. They say that traumatic experiences bring people much closer together or accelerates feelings that may be present already. She has grown to love Rusty with all of her heart in a very short time and harbors fears that her feelings may only come from her being killed by Yamura and seeing how fragile and precious life is, as well as witnessing how much and how strong Rusty's own care for her runs. Praying their love is real, she tries not to smother Rusty, but at the same time, she wants the reassurance that his feelings have not changed. She would never want to love someone so strongly, only to have that love cool. Rusty stealthily opens the letter, careful not to be spotted by Mrs. Branch. Should the teacher get a hold of their letter, she would read it aloud in front of the class and publicly humiliate them both. Smiling, Rusty reads Amy's words of love, which he has expressed in the form of a small poem. He has never been the overly artistic kind of person. In fact, his talents for writing, drawing, poetry, or philosophical thought are not widely known for running in his family. He appreciates the talent that it takes for someone to pour their heart out in the form of written words. Rusty's father, Gator, has a knack of telling distasteful jokes and limericks, but the teen doubts that talent comes from the same genetic blueprint as beautiful prose. Simultaneously, both Rusty and Amy feel a sudden chill in the air. A cold and heavy air, as if one were opening the door to a walk-in refrigeration unit, spreading over them. Seeing his breath emerge as steam from his mouth, Rusty looks about the room in panic. This temperature shift cannot be natural, and he fears what the culprit may be. He notices Amy to be the only other student shivering, and wonders why they are aware of the chill in the air. As if saying to him, "I feel it too," Amy locks eyes with him and nods. The sound of claws raking against brick causes the two teenagers to wince. The sound is shrill and akin to nails on a chalkboard. Something is crawling up the side of the building, and to Rusty's disbelief, only himself and Amy seem to be able to hear the commotion. Running to the window, Rusty looks out to see the grotesque creature moving upwards like a deformed human spider. Appendages stab into the brick and drag the creature's bulk along as it skitters towards the room full of unsuspecting prey. "The fuck is that?" Rusty mouths, backing away slowly from the window. "Mr. Rigsby, is there a problem?" Mrs. Branch asks, obviously irritated by his disruption. She is careful not to be too harsh with the boy. She knows he has been through a lot with the ordeal involving his psychopathic cousin and his murder spree. The Revenant erupts through the wall, raining brick down on the students. In panic, teens scramble for the door as Mrs. Branch and Rusty simultaneously scream an order for evacuation. Stabbing a leg downward, the creature begins to drink the life force from a girl named Jenny Brightwell, who was unlucky enough to have been knocked to the floor by the disturbance. As the girl deflates like a balloon, Rusty leaps with a furious right hook, but passes through the creature as if it were merely an illusion. Rusty crashes full force into a bookshelf and dislocates his shoulder. Swallowing a scream that wishes to explode from within him, Rusty crawls to his feet and rushes the beast a second time. Each attempt to hit the revenant fails, and Rusty grows more desperate and enraged as the chances for saving his classmate dwindles. Howling, feral, Rusty's energy pools into his fist and begins to brilliantly shine with a supernatural blue glow. Connecting finally, Rusty's fist cracks through the revenant's skeletal face and sends the creature flying back out the window like a home run launched out into the stands. Rusty kneels, chest heaving, and lifts Jenny into his arms. She is still breathing, but her skin is wrinkled and her hair turned white and brittle, as if she has aged 50 years. He is shocked that the monster was able to affect her so drastically this quickly, and hurries to put the distance between her and it. "Come on, we have to go," Rusty shouts to Amy, who has remained in the classroom to watch. Nodding, she sprints to follow him out the door. "Why are we the only ones who were able to see that thing?" Amy shouts as they run down the hallway. Rusty shakes his head, not knowing the answer to her question. He does not even know what exactly the creature is that attacked them. The Revenant erupts from the classroom, skidding into a row of lockers as its momentum propels it forward, too far for it to make the turn in time to pursue Rusty. Vibrant with life, the Revenant selects him as its next meal. Never before has prey been able to strike it, piquing the Revenant's interest. Only a truly worthy prey would be capable of doing such a thing. Ignoring weaker sources of life nearby, the Revenant zeroes in on Rusty, blocking out all else. "Here," Rusty shouts, handing Jenny off to Amy. He assumes the creature will chase after him rather than the girls, striking it with that last punch. Not breaking stride, Amy takes the handoff and veers down the first split in the hall to the left. As expected, the Revenant pursues Rusty without hesitation. Assembled in Master Forgeron's dormitory, Danny prepares for the mission to Rocklyn to destroy the Revenant creature that has been loosed on her hometown. In addition to Danny, Master Forgeron has selected 5 of his dorm's provosts to take part in the mission. Meeting them for the first time, Danny is unsure what to make of Master Forgeron's current and former apprentices. Banded together as an anti-dark magic task force, the Blackwings are among the most powerful non-knight mages in the city. Danny is the only apprentice being taken along. Master Forgeron believes it will be a good teaching opportunity, since run-ins with the undead are very infrequent. "You don't look nervous," Provost Lilium Rom says to Danny. "What's your secret? This is my 8th mission, and I still get butterflies in my stomach." "Almost getting killed by a Sakari kind of makes any other life event seem anticlimactic," Danny says, emotionless. Lilium's eyes widen. "Do what?" Danny shrugs. "I got better." Forgeron approaches them, having traded his master's robe in for an enchanted tactical vest and pants. He distributes similar attire to the team he has assembled, and they all begin to change. "We will be departing shortly, as everyone casts their protection circles and enchantments." "Which protections do I need?" Danny asks, unsure. "It is best to be covered across the board. We may be dealing with a Revenant, but you never know if a rogue is responsible and lying wait to ambush our team." "Can a Revenant really be summoned like that?" Provost Chris Guerrero asks as he looks through a collection of various swords, trying to choose one he feels appropriate for the mission. Forgeron nods. "Most creatures can be summoned in one way or another, whether it be by contract or against their will. A skilled enough mage can even summon high-ranking devils or the saints." "Saints?" Danny whispers. She has never heard of the term before in regard to magically summoned creatures. "They are hellish beings that even most devils fear. There are known to be 28 of them, and they are not only powerful beyond all measure, they are also immortal. A mage may bring them into our world via contract, but they are not at full power. Do not be mistaken, though. A mere shadow of their form manifested in the physical plane is cause for concern. A saint can be defeated, thus dismissing them back to their dimension, but they cannot be killed and can always be resummoned if the mage has enough stamina remaining. Do we have any equivalent to deal with them? Danny asks. I mean, is there a positive force summonable to counter a saint? We were taught that magic must be in balance. The saints sound anything but that. The Yazatan mages are rumored to have battled the saints long ago with their own holy beasts, but their summoning spells have never been found in our archives. Terrific, Danny sighs. Lilium steps in front of Danny and begins casting protection spells on her. I'll be the primary support for this mission. If you feel your protection waver or suffer any injuries, fall back to me for healing. Have you ever faced a revenant before on your missions? Lilium does not answer immediately, giving Danny concern. We were sent to destroy a nest of Boach once. Danny's concern grows exponentially. That wasn't your only combat mission, was it? We killed all of those disgusting creatures without a single casualty. I'd say we did pretty damn good. A Boach isn't exactly a ferocious, predatory spirit, Danny whispers. Through her required studies, she has read about numerous non-human creatures living in the world. The Boach are roughly 3-foot-tall goblins with minimal intelligence or fighting ability. Gero laughs. You know you just jinxed us, right? He has finally selected a one-handed Chinese Jan sword from the 7th century. He begins to cast enchantments along the blade. That isn't a thing, Lilium says, rolling her eyes. If I die on this mission, I'm coming back to haunt you for that comment, Guero says, smiling. Why aren't any masters or knights being deployed other than Master Forgeron? I thought they were needed to deal with a revenant threat, Danny asks. Won't it be too much for 5 provosts and an apprentice to handle? Master Forgeron is leading this mission, and he prefers to work with his own teams, Provost Dane Sinnoh says. We all know how each other operates and our strengths and weaknesses. As a team, the Blackwings are as good as any unit of knights, Forgeron says. You will successfully eliminate the threat. Of that I am sure. Won't I be throwing off your synergy? I've never been on a mission as a mage, let alone worked alongside your team, Danny asks. That will be up to you, Forgeron says. Either you will work well with the team, or you'll get in the way. There is no way of knowing the result ahead of time. Seriously, though, don't get in the way, Gero says, still smiling. When we identify our target, Provost Rom will cast Visiville to make the creature able to be seen by the rest of the team. Provost Sinnoh and Butler will cast binding spells to restrain the beast, while Provost Guerrero delivers the kill, Forgeron explains. I will provide support to any role that is needed, while Provost Rom will continuously cast protections, stat buffs, and healing as needed. Provost Malenko will guard our healer from any attacks. If the healer dies, we're in a bad state, Guerrero explains to Danny. The healer must be shielded from the rest of the combat. What will be my role? Danny asks. You will be our eyes until Provost Rom is able to cast visibility on the creature. Because of your brush with death, you have the rare ability and advantage of being able to see spiritual beings without the aid of a magical spell or item. Your familiarity with Rocklyn will also be crucial for tracking down the Revenant and preventing it from reaching any population centers or finding a place to hide or escape to. The Knights are nearly finished preparing the teleportation circle, Provost Edward Malenko says. We're ready for deployment. Forgeron nods. All right, Blackwings. It's time to save the day. Lieutenant Hendricks enters the room, having returned from the office of the Chief Medical Examiner. Analysis of the strands of hair gripped in the victim's hand have come back. Both of the other detectives look up with anticipation, like the reveal at the end of a great mystery novel. They belong to Brooke Stewart Tyndall. Detective Morris is the most shocked by this revelation. Wait, are you saying that there was a struggle with her own mother before her death? Lieutenant Hendricks nods. The damage to the follicles is consistent with having been forcefully pulled from the scalp. We need to contact Agent Rice immediately. He just might want to turn around and help us arrest Stewart Tyndall. Doubtful. He really seemed less intent on solving this case and more focused on catching Jake Stewart. Can you really blame him? At the time, even we thought Stewart was responsible for this newest murder. If there are multiple murderers in his family, the entire lot of them need to be closer scrutinized. Once we apprehend Stewart Tyndall, we follow up on the other members of the family, namely Ann Stewart and the Rigsby household. Hendricks paces, trying to think over the situation very carefully. Any missteps at this juncture, and they could unravel the entire investigation. If the murders by Jake Stewart and his cousin are related, we need to entertain the possibility that they've been working together this entire time. If they are sharing information, then it's quite possible that Jake has already been tipped off that the investigation for him has carried over into Florida. He finally grabs his phone off the table and dials Rice. The line connects. Special Agent Rice. This is Lieutenant Hendricks with IMPD. We have new information in the Melissa Tyndall murder case. Go ahead, Rice says without emotion. The DNA came back on the strands of hair we found in the victim's hand. Continue, Rice says. A lot of commotion on his end is heard, with people talking loudly. It belongs to the mother, Brooke Stewart Tyndall. There's silence for a moment. Interesting. Do you intend to bring the suspect in? Hendricks smiles. We were heading over there as soon as I finished giving you the update. Be careful. Any mother capable of such an atrocity will not hesitate to do worse to you. Bring more backup than you think is necessary. It's always possible that she too has explosive traps set up. Any news about the other one, Jake? Nothing yet, but I'm still confident that we'll soon catch our prey. Hendricks ends the call and turns to his comrades. We need to bring Brooke in ASAP. We can't risk any potential information leaks. If Jake is aware that Agent Rice is after him, all the authorities down there may be in grave danger. The detectives grab their jackets and check their weapons to make sure they're fully loaded and functional. They run to the armory and grab shotguns off the rack and equip themselves with protective flak jackets. Brooke is likely to still be surrounded by a large group of people, and each of them may be just as equally dangerous as her. Send us as many units for backup as you can. We're going to hit the house first and make sure that Brooke is unable to flee. Focus the reinforcements on surrounding the area and boxing it in, Detective Morris tells Ruth, the receptionist, as he runs past her and out the door. Ruth nods, instantly recalling any on-duty patrols and redirecting them to the address of Brooke Stewart Tyndall. Hold on, Ruth shouts, her dispatch lighting up like a Christmas tree. There seems to be some kind of emergency at the high school. Multiple explosions. I have several units on the scene, but they're requesting additional coverage. Damn it, Morris curses. Give them what they need, but we're still going after Stewart Tyndall. We're on limited time here, and we can't let her catch wind that we know she's the murderer. As soon as possible, get those units to us. Lieutenant Hendricks and Detectives Morris and Osteen rush to the parking lot and take 2 unmarked vehicles. Outside the school, Amy regroups with her classmates. All of the classes have exited along fire drill procedure, and she hopes that her quick thinking has saved her peers from the creature stalking them. She prays for Rusty's safety, and that he'll find a way to kill the terrible beast before it can do any more harm. The staff and first responders discuss an exploding gas line that none of them seem to be able to locate, all oblivious of the danger that only Amy and Rusty seem to be able to perceive. The monster, Jamie whispers to the paramedics as they take her vitals. Is that monster still following us? The paramedics step back, whispering to each other. Frightened by the young girl's altered appearance, they're unable to explain how an exploding gas line is responsible for draining someone of their youth and vitality. Rusty, Amy whispers, holding her hand against her heart. Be careful. The Blackwings head to the spell array prepared for them outside by a transportation team. 7 Knights of Solomon stand around the circle, ready to send the Blackwings to the human world. When we arrive, Danny, I will need you to focus on locating the Revenant. I can't explain the feeling to you, as I've only read about it. They say that it's like taking a plunge in an icy river, and then fighting against a strong current, Fordron says. Leave the fighting to us. I just need you to locate and maneuver us around the city so that we aren't cornered at any time. The undead are not typically clever enough to set traps, but we have no idea how much this Revenant has mutated from consuming so many fresh lives. Danny nods, feeling frightened for the first time in weeks. Aspects of her new life have been trying and certainly made her nervous, but not since facing Ymura has she felt such raw and primal fear. Stepping into the circle, they join hands as the Knights activate the spell array. In a flash of light, Danny and the others are transported across the worlds, back to her former home. Coming to a stop in Rocklyn, Danny feels as if all of her internal organs are going to be inadvertently vomited up. Her eyes sting with tears as she swallows down a mouthful of acidic bile. That's always so much fun, Provost Rom laughs, popping a stick of gum into her mouth. Remembering Vatis's advice when she first arrived, she fishes her pockets for her own pieces of chewing gum. Anything? Master Fordron asks, a piece of peppermint balanced on his tongue as he speaks. Danny concentrates, surveying the area. She recognizes the site as a lumber yard on the northeastern portion of town. No one alive is anywhere to be seen. To their left, about a block, is the still taped-off building that she remembers fondly before she ever heard the name of Ymura. We're close to the dojo, she thinks with sadness. We have bodies over here, Provost Jonathan Butler says, nudging the mummified remains of a lumberyard worker with his foot. 2 more lay nearby. More over here, Guerrero says from across the street. The bodies appear as if they were hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and Danny shudders in horror. Police sirens blare in the distance, along with the sounds of fire engines and worried civilians. I don't think we're going to need my help finding that monster, Danny says, pointing towards Rocklyn High School. Damn, Fordron whispers in frustration. The bastard's already found the most vibrant source of life energy in town to feed upon. If it's already eaten this many people, just how strong has this monster gotten? Provost Rom asks, pointing to all the bodies lying scattered about. Will we really be able to handle this creature after all? It's too late to worry about that now, Fordron says. We're the only hope those students have at survival. If we don't reach the school in time, the Revenant will devour every single living soul in the area. Guerrero swallows hard. If that happens, not even the Knights would be able to take it down. Danny's complexion pales. What have I gotten myself into? Panting from exhaustion, Rusty sits in the school library, hiding behind a stack of periodicals. With a clear line of sight to the room's only entry point, he hopes he'll have the maneuverability to evade the creature in the larger area. Trying to focus his energy in order to deliver another attack if necessary, Rusty finds that he's unable. Weakened far more than he should have from just a few punches and running, he wonders if somehow the creature did to him what it did to Jenny Brightwell when it attacked her. If the creature could drain energy with a touch, he wonders that perhaps even his punch may have transferred some of his stamina over. Feeling the cold chill again of the Revenant's proximity, Rusty shivers in nervous preparation. The creature cautiously enters the library, using its front, spear-like legs to feel out the entryway for any hidden dangers. Rusty finds the behavior strange. It's as if this predatory creature has itself been hunted at one time or another by something even more powerful. Mandibles on the Revenant's head lower and spread out, revealing sensory organs that sniff the air for life energy. Evolved through each successful hunt, the creature becomes ever the more apex predator. Danny and the Blackwings enter the school, running past dozens of frightened students. Several police attempt to block their entrance, but they're frozen in place with a paralysis spell by Master Forgeron. Once inside, the bodies of several police and other first responders lie drained on the floor. "Looks like we're headed in the right direction," Danny says. She tries to focus on the strange coldness she feels, and follow it down the halls as they run with her in the lead. "This way!" The group reaches the gymnasium, and Forgeron holds a hand out to stop Danny and the others from entering just yet. "Cast your spells now before we enter. Once the battle starts, we'll not have the chance to stop and prepare." Visiville. Provost Rom casts the enchantment on herself and the other provosts to make the Revenant visible to them. Each of the mage's eyes glow a strange green color due to the spell. The Revenant shifts abruptly, sensing something elsewhere. It appears torn by indecision, looking back and forth between the library ahead and the gymnasium to its rear. It finally decides to turn and gallop into the gymnasium, bursting through the double doors with a loud roar. A bright flash of light streaks into the Revenant, sending it crashing into a row of bleachers. "Block its escape points!" Forgeron screams as his team bursts through the door. "We need this stretch of hallway to be a choke point, and keep the Revenant trapped in the gym, where we'll have more space to maneuver. This creature has far more of an advantage when it can sneak up on us." Provost Butler and Sinnoh begin to weave together barrier spells, moving their hands together in a quick yet graceful dance. Tying their magic together, they're able to double-stitch the barriers, and make them much more difficult to break. The magician's eyes all glow with a green light, resulting from the spell performed to enable them to see non-corporeal entities. The Revenant flips to its base, stabbing several of its long appendages into the floor for traction. Forgeron and Guerrero rush down the court, wielding enchanted swords. Blades glow with spell glyphs, indicating they are gifted with the ability to banish dark spirits and wound a body with no flesh. The Revenant whirls its legs around in defense, catching Guerrero on the side and slamming him into a row of lockers. Forgeron sidesteps a leg with incredible agility and cuts diagonally through a second, before a third leg catches him under the chin and sends him into a backflip. Forgeron lands in a crouch, but the Provost hits the floor hard and does not move. Blood spreads out around his face as it lies pressed into the tile. "Chris!" Provost Butler screams in dismay. His focus on the barrier spell wanes, and the Revenant is able to advance, bringing two legs down on the energy and dispersing it. The feedback from the broken spell reverberates back into the magicians, blasting them away. In seconds, the entire plan has fallen apart, and the Revenant holds a distinct advantage over them. The Revenant moves towards Danny, each spear-like leg stabbing into the floor. The two downed Provosts begin to stir, but the undead creature is already on them before they can react. "Move!" Danny screams as the Revenant's legs surround the magicians. The Revenant lets out a paralyzing cry, causing everyone but Danny and Forgeron to freeze. The creature drops to all fours and begins to charge towards the frozen mages, but Forgeron throws his hands out and quickly casts a spell. "Garuda Nostra!" Forgeron shouts, creating a powerful wind gust that propels the mages out of the Revenant's path, just in time. The creature skids to a stop and pivots, growling angrily. "Restrainta!" Danny shouts, conjuring magical chains from the floor to bind the Revenant's legs. The creature raises up, breaking the bonds and knocking Danny to her back, due to the feedback of her spell being dismissed. Forgeron rushes to Provost Rom first, placing a hand against her forehead. "Abjura!" Lillian blinks several times, snapping out of her trance. "What happened?" "The Revenant has grown stronger than we feared. It was able to inflict some kind of paralysis ability on us. I suspect it developed the technique as some kind of hunting strategy," Forgeron explains. The Revenant charges straight at them, but Danny again slows the creature down with conjured chains. "Release the paralysis on the rest of the team, and we'll carry on with the original plan," Forgeron says to Lilium. Lilium nods. "Yes, Master." She runs to Guerrero and immediately places a hand on his forehead. Abjura. Aginestra! Fordron shouts, hurling a ball of fire magic at the Revenant. The blast hits the creature in the face, tugs it off, and growls louder and angrier than ever before. Oh shit. The Master whispers just as the Revenant rushes him with a head-level slash. Fordron's body explodes into a murder of crows, and the birds scatter to avoid the deadly attack. You're a strong one, Fordron says, his body reforming behind the Revenant. The Revenant turns, sensing less dangerous prey nearby. Fordron notices the creature's attention shift towards the hallway, leading back to the locker rooms, just as two teenage girls emerge. Go on! Get out of here! Fordron screams. Who are you, weirdos? One of the girls asks. She suddenly feels cold all over, and finds it difficult to breathe. Provost Butler sprints over to the teens, scooping one up under each arm and dashes back into the girls' locker room for cover. The Revenant attempts to follow, but is stopped by several strikes from Provost Guerrero's blade. Come after me, you cock-sucking ghost bug! Guerrero screams, swinging his sword repeatedly. The attacks fail to pierce the Revenant's thick hide, and only intensify the creature's anger. Aginestra! Guerrero falls back, firing several fireballs to try and weaken the Revenant's natural armor so that his blade can pierce through. The attacks deal negligible damage. Restrainta! Provost Sino and Malenko shout, conjuring chains that wrap around the Revenant's spidery legs and pull them apart, just enough for the creature to collapse off balance in a splits position. The Revenant growls loudly and pulls, jerking the chains towards it, and the mages off their feet. As the mages are pulled towards the Revenant, the creature attempts to impale them, but is thwarted by a pinkish-colored wall of protective energy. Provost Rom stands with both hands out, sweat running down her face. I can't keep this up for long. Guerrero drops down onto the Revenant's back and attempts to drive his sword down straight through the creature's carapace. The mage's eyes widen in horror as his sword snaps in half on contact. Guerrero begins to feel his vitality being sapped, being so close to the deadly creature. In seconds he falls from the Revenant's back and lies motionless on the floor. Chris is down! Sino shouts. He attempts to move towards his downed comrade, but the Revenant backhands him with one of its spidery legs. He hits the wall hard and collapses in a heap. Dane is down now too, Malenko shouts, stepping up to try to distract the Revenant with a barrage of Aginestra fireballs. Master Fordron, we could use a hand! Danny shakily steps up and adds several bursts of Aginestra fire of her own against the other side of the Revenant's face. The creature growls in irritation at the mages and their continued interference in its hunt. Continuing to fight here is a bad idea, Malenko says. We need to try and lure the beast away from the school. That won't work, Fordron says. Not while there are so many strong life energies here for it to sense. Lillian manages to drag Guerrero and Sino out of danger and attempts to heal their injuries and return their consciousness. The battle is progressing far too dangerously for them to be out of the fight for long. Between the healing and raising the energy barrier, Lilium's stamina is depleted severely. She stumbles on one knee and is forced to catch herself with one hand on the floor, breaking her concentration. She returns to her healing spells, sweat pouring from her face. There, Lilium whispers, her eyes rolling back in her head. Make it count. The team's healer falls to her back unconscious. With Lilium out of the battle, all of her enhancement spells abruptly vanish, including her Visaville spell. None but Danny still possessed the sight to see the Revenant. The Revenant gains ground on the mages, stabbing outward with its legs. Provost Malenko tries to defend, but it is obvious that he is fighting blind and unable to see or hear his opponent. Your left! Danny screams just as one of the Revenant's appendages stabs into Malenko's shoulder. The Provost screams in pain, paralyzed. He instantly feels drained of his strength and wants nothing more than to go to sleep. His hair loses its color, and his skin becomes dry and pale. Agnestra! Danny screams, drawing forth the element of fire and releasing it in a flaming ball that severs the Revenant's leg and releases Malenko from its hold. The Revenant turns in anger, directing its attention towards Danny. Instinctively, the girl backpedals while maintaining the element of fire foremost in her thoughts. Releasing bursts of fire at the creature's legs, Danny attempts to trip up the Revenant. Moving with swift reflexes, the Revenant managed to avoid Danny's blasts and closed the distance between them. Raising an orb of fire to attack, the proximity of the creature drains Danny's strength and causes her spell to fade. Damn it! Danny strains, forced to a knee. Sweat beads roll down her face and her breathing becomes labored. The sweat crystallizes from the cold. Waves of energy rise up from Danny, drawn into the Revenant's jaws. She tries to muster the strength to summon another spell or move, but cannot. The pressure bearing down on her is far too great. I shouldn't have come. Vatus was right. I've only gotten myself killed. Danny stares into the face of the Revenant, feeling it slowly drinking her life force. There won't be any miraculous revival this time. I'll be killed and gone from this world forever. Chidoriya! Lightning pillars! Bolts of electrical energy flash downwards, blocking Danny from the Revenant with a wall. Several bolts pierce through the creature's legs and carapace, pinning it in place. Master Fordron staggers towards the beast from behind, his chest heaving. Back away, he orders. Danny feels the strength to move return to her, and she leaps backwards. She is relieved beyond expression that Master Fordron has lived up to his duties as team leader and not allowed his teammates to be killed. The lightning begins to fade, and Fordron watches to his astonishment as his energy too is slowly absorbed. All living energy is food for this monster. I can't believe how powerful this Revenant is, Fordron thinks, trying to come up with another spell that will be effective. His thoughts are sluggish, and he knows that the Revenant is feeding off of his energy. I have to end this quickly. The longer this fight continues, the stronger this creature will grow, and the weaker we will become. With a scream, Rusty emerges from the hallway and drives a glowing fist straight through two of the Revenant's legs. The creature stumbles, now off balance. Rusty pivots, shattering another leg. The blue glow around the teen's fist dissipates as his energy is absorbed. He suddenly feels fatigued, and he struggles to move. His legs grow heavy, and he drops to a knee, holding his chest in pain. Nice job, kid, Fordron coughs, seizing the opportunity to pick up his enchanted sword and leaps at the Revenant from behind. Fordron drives his sword down into the Revenant's back, bearing it to the hilt. The creature howls in pain, flailing its remaining legs. The heavy pressure on Rusty and the magicians alleviates, as the Revenant is no longer concerned with feeding. Deteriorating, the undead creature begins to shrivel just like its prey, until it shrinks to less than half of its original size. The Blackwings converge on the wounded creature, barraging it with Agnestra fire blasts. Danny? Rusty asks, noticing his former classmate for the first time. Blinking in disbelief, Danny is surprised to find Rusty here battling the undead creature as well. She supposes that it should not be a surprise, though. If there's trouble, she knows that Rusty would feel obligated to place himself in the center of it. He's just that kind of guy. Did you get bored without Yamura being around to try and kill you? Danny asks, straightening up. She still feels weak, but she'll survive. Something like that, Rusty replies with a shrug. What the hell was that? A really nasty monster that I hope we never have to run across ever again. Master Fordron approaches, walking with a slight limp from where he was thrown into the lockers earlier. Friend of yours? Yeah, we're old war buddies, Danny laughs. Rusty holds his chest as if it was still a little tight, causing him to wince. We fought Yamura together and lived to tell the tale. Fordron nods in understanding. That's why you could see the Revenant. I thank you for all of your assistance. Danny suddenly realizes that Master Fordron was able to see the Revenant without the need for the spell for supernatural sight. She's curious why he hid this ability, playing up Danny's own uniqueness on this mission. Provost Malenko looks at his hands, scared by the dry, flaking skin. Don't worry, I don't think it took enough energy that you can't be restored by our healers, Fordron says, comforting his people. He looks back over to Rusty. Again, I thank you for your assistance, but please do not make any mention that we were ever here. The world at large cannot know about the existence of such creatures, or the magical world. If they won't believe my cousin was possessed by an ancient demonic spirit, they aren't going to believe in some energy-eating ghost monsters. I am not willing to take that chance, so please keep this encounter to yourself. Rusty nods, waving off the intense magician. No problem, my lips are sealed. Good seeing you again, Danny. Stay out of trouble. Danny chuckles. That's unlikely. Rusty exits the school and drops to a knee, coughing. His body is still severely drained of energy, and even he is amazed that he was able to do so much as he did. Several paramedics rush to the teen's side, placing an oxygen mask over his face and checking on his vitals. He feels Amy's eyes upon him and holds out a thumbs up to show that he's okay. How is Jenny, the girl that I carried out earlier? Rusty asks, his voice making a very deep and robotic tone due to the oxygen mask. She's going to be just fine, one of the paramedics says, checking Rusty's blood pressure. Aside from the epithelial damage, she doesn't seem to have suffered any other injuries. Rusty hopes the effects of the Revenant feeding are not permanent and that Jenny will regain her youthful appearance in time. It would be a tragedy to have one's life sped up by decades due to circumstances out of their power to control. What was that thing? Amy asks, walking over as soon as the paramedics clear Rusty to go. Was that another demon, like Yamura? Rusty shakes his head. It was more like some kind of predatory spirit that snuck into our world through a small tear. She looks at him skeptically. And how exactly did you learn all of this? Danny and a few of her magician friends showed up and killed it. You should have seen it. Danny's gotten way stronger. It was awesome. Amy is surprised to learn that Danny was there, but guesses that she should not. Like Rusty, Danny will look for trouble in order to do the right thing. Her guilt at feeling responsible for bringing Yamura into this world comes with a heavy burden. Did she say anything about Jake? Has she seen him? No, Rusty replies, wishing he had better news. Jake hasn't made any contact with her or her allies. All she knows is that he's in Florida and is still alive. Well, that's more than we knew, so I guess it should come as a reassurance. Not really, Rusty sighs. We know he's alive, but we also know that the police are still hot for him. I bet he isn't even aware that they've pinned another murder on him. It's frustrating because there's nothing that we can do to help. Amy gently takes his hand into hers. We can pray for his safety. That's not enough. That's just hoping things will work out. Rusty places his other hand atop Amy's. I can't do that. Jake is family, and he needs help. I won't give up on finding a way.